Welcome to Beyond the Policy, the podcast where we go past the fine print and into the real stories that shape how we live, work, and protect what matters most. I'm Matt Karaffa, risk advisor, consultant, and founder of the Be Better Foundation, where each week sit down with clients, colleagues, and industry voices to talk about business, life, and the passions that drive each of us and the areas we can all work on to truly be better. This is Beyond the Policy. Welcome to Beyond the Policy. Excited to get into conversation today with Chris Chamberlin. Before I share too much, I know you wear a lot of hats, do a lot of things, so maybe I'll just start off with you and what you're up to and what occupies your time these days.
Yeah, so I'm the owner of Mattress, which is Ohio's smallest mattress store, and also another business, Sofa Express, and then do some personal mentoring and coaching, volunteer at the Henry County Sheriff's Office, teach a suicide prevention class there, and also do some mentoring, leading, and a little bit of teaching on martial arts side, and a little bit of pistol shooting.
A little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything.
And we'll probably touch on a lot here on the episode today, but maybe just with entrepreneurship and, you know, your interesting tagline of Ohio's smallest mattress shop, maybe just walk us through that, your journey, where it started, where it is today, and obviously some ups and downs along the way.
Yeah. So I started actually my career in coaching college basketball, head golf coach at Goshen College, and also sports information director. So I think early on, wearing lots of hats was almost a requirement.
Sure.
And I said I would never get into the furniture industry because I felt like it was run by a bunch of old white dudes that weren't very innovative, and it just didn't seem like fun. And wouldn't you know it, that's where my life ended up. But I thought it was fascinating to be in an industry that was very dominated by certain perspectives. It was very transactional, not very relational. And I thought, well, here's an opportunity to make something very relational, experiential for customers and also culture and staff. And so I felt like over the years we've been able to create a culture that's very unique in our industry that's focused on people.
Yeah, absolutely. And then with your from background, how many people do you manage, own, how many run in your organization on a day-to-day basis?
Mm-hmm. Right now we're only at 3 because
Okay.
we went as lean as possible. This summer we'll expand to 5, and then from there it's going to be a very organic process as far as how we grow. But it's really the focus of quality over quantity in utilizing systems and processes that help people do their job better, help them focus more on people, and we've needed less bodies to do that, even in our industry.
Right. And a lot of guests on here, we've talked about AI, we've talked about, you know, Amazon and kind of all those impacts they have. Mattresses, I would imagine not as easy to just go on Amazon and pick. I'm sure you still can, but, you know, they want to do that in the industry. When someone walks through the doors, they still want to touch it, feel it, talk to someone. I would imagine in your industry that's still somewhat relevant.
Yeah, and I think developing a connection and rapport with people from the very, very beginning, that they can see that you're different. You know, when we look at our marketing and messaging and branding, you know, Ohio's smallest mattress store, and kind of having fun. We're mattress nerds. You know, we kind of, I had somebody kind of help look at my identity as a business owner, who I really am, and kind of uncovered some things that, you know, I am a nerd at heart. And he said, don't run from that, because that's one of your superpowers. And building that into the branding and messaging. So when people come in, you know, it's more disarming to work with a nerd in a group of nerds that are just trying to help you get a better night's sleep. And we're not trying to sell you something, we're trying to fit you to something that fits your story and what you have going on. And we build in a guarantee called the Miraculous Mattress Promise that we give people 1 year to love their mattress. We'll take it back with no hassling, no arguing, no fine print, nothing, because we want everything to be aligned around that experience. And if we mess it up, it's our fault. It's not the customer's fault. So I think, you know, providing that support today for the consumer is really important.
Yeah, and I think if you take that message, I think a lot of industries could benefit from that, because you hear so much of how different business transactions are just that, transactional. And there's not the relationship piece or the experience. And I think we lose that. So that's awesome to hear. You're still, you know, bringing that in and being a part. So one question for me, with, you know, you see the ads online for the mattresses that move up and down and all the technology in there. Is that coming in, is that a high seller, or just curious on how that is for the business segment?
You know, it is part of it, but it really depends on the person and their needs. So we've spent a lot of time over the years researching, testing, You know, like our whole staff sleeps on our product, which we've designed and created. So
during work or at home?
At home, yes, yeah.
Fair
But yeah, to be able to play around with things and know what the experience is going to be like with somebody. And you know, customers aren't guinea pigs, and the industry kind of uses retail as the guinea pig to see what works, and that's not what we're going to put people through. We're going to figure that out ourselves. So, you know, some people, some new forms of technology, whether it's adjustable base or even other things in a mattress, might benefit certain people, but not others. And we assess that and figure that out through the sales process.
Very cool. You touched on one thing, which you know, you and I have had conversations on. We both have a basketball past, and I always tell people I wouldn't be where I am today without my experience, whether it be coaching, playing, now officiating. You know, you've shared that similar thing from a coaching. Anything that you've taken from your playing, coaching experience that has helped you in your business, professional life today?
Yeah. I think initially playing, it was, you know, getting to go to college, you know, playing a little bit of JV basketball and figuring out, man, I'm not as good as I thought I was. In dealing with the issue of, boy, this is way harder than I thought. And if you're resilient, you can work through that. It's just like in business or anything else. And I was very fortunate that the coach recognized that I guess I had a little bit of brain power, that I was smart about basketball. My IQ was decent. So he plugged me right into coaching. And from there, just learning more about basketball on a completely different level, because we were very much a thinking program, which was, even in our league, which had a lot of great teams in it, was very different in a lot of ways, because, you know, a lot of people at that point, even 25 years ago, were not teaching thinking basketball.
Right. And then one thing, just as an official and, you know, coaching at that level, small college level, anything that sticks out from more the officiating standpoint of great call, bad call, anything you remember on that? That's more for my own curiosity. But
I remember some officials being so amazing at just their ability to, on command, just see it and sense it, even if it wasn't the right call, just their ability to be confident in that decision. And I think that was everything, because the moment I felt like we got really upset with officials, and I remember a lot of emotion coming out, is when there was that hesitation. You know, we were fortunate to have J.D. Collins referee quite a few of our basketball games back then, and he became, very high up in the NCAA. If I remember, did Final Four maybe?
Final Four, and then he managed over the entire NCAA for officials. So yeah, he had a great track record.
So between J.D. Collins and some other guys that were amazing, you get to see what that standard of excellence looks like, and that always stood apart. And I always appreciated just their rapport with coaching and with just managing the game in general from an officiating standpoint was great.
Right. Yeah, it's cool to see, and again, always ties back, and now each year that goes by, I get more and more removed from basketball and more in it, but staying connected to it. Anything you're doing to stay connected to it now? I know you're busy with all those other things you mentioned, but other than just watching it?
No, I try to get up, and I have a couple friends that still coach at the Division III level.
Okay.
I like to watch their teams play. But other than that, I have trouble watching basketball on TV like I used to. Just the style of game has changed quite a bit.
The money, NIL, we talk about that a lot of.
Yep.
You're not watching the same product.
I appreciate the athletic ability is phenomenal, but as far as fundamentals of basketball, but I was a slow-footed guy playing, so I like teams that have to deal with that, that counteract that.
I think it's funny, you go to these different schools, or even here at the MAC level, senior night, like that's not a thing anymore. Like, kids that have been here 9 months, like, yeah, you're a senior, but it's not the same where you're celebrating someone that's been on the team for 4 or 5 years through the process, and I don't know, I think that misses, but we'll see.
Yeah, and the camaraderie and some other elements of that I think back when you're talking about thinking back to things, I think a lot of emotional moments with guys and with freshmen and people that I'll never forget. That's great stuff.
That's part of the journey. So thank you for that insight. And we take it one step further. We talked a lot about your experience in your business and managing it. You also mentioned do some consulting, mentoring, talk to other business owners, could be wine ranging industries. Any themes or more relevant conversations that you've been having maybe in the last 3 to 5 years that you've seen?
Number one has been when people say they're having trouble getting help. And I disagree with that wholeheartedly.
Okay.
I think I look in the mirror and say that's a Chris Chamberlin business owner problem if I'm not attracting the right talent. We've been very fortunate to build a great culture, especially the last few years, of hiring really good people that were a good fit, work well together, have fun. Because one of our mantras is at the end of the day, you should leave with enough energy in the tank that you can go home and live life, whether it's family or other activities. And you should also be excited to show up the next day because you want to be around the people you work with. So, I spend a lot of time working through people. Why is it that you're having trouble getting help? And kind of unpackaging that. And it can be very uncomfortable, and I still have to do it myself as a business owner.
Do you find with someone, that's a tough question if you're asking the business owner itself. I think about, asking my kids questions I already know the answers to.
Mm-hmm.
It takes 3 or 4 or 5 times to get it out of them. Is that similar in that of until they admit maybe the problem that's self-generating that is causing them? Or what's a secret to kind of get there faster?
Well, the first initial reaction is objection and defensiveness.
Sure.
And then it just takes a while to kind of slowly peel away the layers and tell them that it's something in our behavior. It's not you as a business owner. It's not you as a person. It's just a behavior habit that's been developed and even a mindset that needs shifted. And once you can kind of get to the root of that and separate the behavior from the person, kind of like we do with our kids or a lot of other, then we start getting somewhere. Yeah, definitely.
Any specific strategy or game plan you've come up with that you've seen maybe that tough conversation where they've admitted and then you check back with them 6 months, a year later, and it flipped and it worked and they got the people or they fixed the issue? Anything stick out to you in your journey?
I think in a year it's still kind of early. I think there's been some small wins, but I think you really have to, if you don't know your identity as a business owner, you don't know your vision, then it's really hard to make those changes and work towards. Right. Yeah. So it's another component of it. If the person doesn't have a strong sense of identity, doesn't have a vision for their business, even though vision is scary because we can't predict the future, you still have to plan it out. And so then we start kind of having to talk about that a little bit of what is the vision for where you're going. So we're doing two things when you're talking to some of these conversations. We have system 1 and system 2 thinking, and we've gone from being having a rational conversation for it to being emotional, and I have to give them time to come back and be rational again and start to work on their business and not have it be an emotional thing.
Yeah, I get a little sense of in our society today, people just want a quick fix. They just want, you're a consultant, you can fix my business. Tell me this one thing to do and I'll do it and I'll make more money or I'll find more people. Yeah. And in reality, that's just not in anything. No. You need to have processes, procedures, you have to follow a plan. Yeah. And we talk a lot about that, in the business world when it comes to risk of, what's your plan? Yeah, you want to pay less? Yeah, me too. Mm-hmm. What's your plan? What's your strategy? It can't just be, I hope nothing bad happens and then we'll fix it later. Yeah. So
I think there's a lot of focus on tactics, but not so much on the strategy element of it. And it is difficult to sit down and separate those out. I think it's really important, not that you maybe have a consultant that helps with that, but you should have 3 to 5 people in your life professionally that can help provide some guidance at no cost. Yeah. And you're free to provide insight and value for those individuals as well. I'd say if we don't have that in our professional life, we're definitely missing something.
Yeah, and that's a great segue because talking into, might have heard me share, my Be Better, mindset and kind of the mentorship stuff we're doing with kids, but you kind of just hit it, have 3 to 5 people professionally, personally, to help maybe just talk a little bit about mentorship in your life. Obviously, I'm sure you're a mentor to some others, your staff or, previous employees or players, but also who's your mentor and how does that relationship work kind of both ways for you?
Mm-hmm. Have quite a few mentors, and I divide them up into kind of families, and I think I talked about this at BNI a couple of years ago, so if I have my furniture and mattress family, when I go to those mentors and those people and we talk about problems related to that industry specific, I don't take problems to them they can't help me solve because it's not going to work. The same thing if it's related to finance or something on a higher level. AI right now would be a perfect example. I don't have many people in my life I can take those problems with to yet, so I'm in the process of searching for those. and trying to learn myself so that I can add value to them. But I go to them with the AI problem. I don't talk about other business problems. I think to me that's one of the benefits of that approach is being very specific.
Yeah, because I think there's a difference between, like a therapy session versus an actual mentorship of, hey, if you're just going to vent, hey, preface that at the door. You're not looking for my feedback, as opposed to a true mentor, like you're there to work on a problem and come up with a solution, as opposed to just, hey, it was a rough week, I need just to vent and get it out there.
Yeah. You have to be, I think with your mentors, and really being respectful of their time and expertise. There's a reason why you went to them. Be intentional about how you spend that time, and they will give you so much more in return when they see that you're that focused on solving a problem and doing something, because they can help you with that. It's very concrete.
Right, and I think from our short, introduction when you were at BNI and we've had conversations with that, your ability to come off and just say what to expect out of you. Like no one's going to have a conversation with you and expect, quick, because you've laid it out. You've shared kind of your process and what to expect, and I think that's a big takeaway of what we can all be better at is over communicate, be upfront with expectations, and don't try and fix a problem that you can't in the first 30 minutes.
Yeah, I think clarity is super important, and it comes at the risk of insulting people. But you really get down to if you care about people, you're going to deliver that in a way that's, it may be insulting, but it's not creating irreparable damage of any kind. But I think that clarity is super important.
That'd be an interesting. I think most officials should develop that, because you're gonna have to talk to a coach. It's not gonna be great. He ain't gonna like it. But how do you do that? And that's what I love about business and being connected and all those things, that there's so much overlap with, a conversation you and I are having can transfer to, you go back to your employees, or I can take it to officiating. So appreciate getting the time and, where this conversation is going. So thank you for that insight. And we've moved to your personal, side. You mentioned pistol shooting and some of your, I believe you're still competing.
Just very little. It's one of those things like my mentors in shooting have talked about, if you want to achieve something, you really have to put the time and effort into it. And I'm not willing to trade time away from my wife, son and his fiance, family, my parents. It's not worth it. And, I had a difficult conversation with my wife where I had to tell her that I realized, I was being pretty selfish at times pursuing shooting, because it was all about Chris. It wasn't about some other things. And so now I'm trying to turn that to where it's more about her and things she wants to do. And so that was, that insight when that hit me was pretty powerful.
Yeah. So along that, what other personal passions, obviously focus on your time, family, and all those things, but if you do get the Chris time, is it shooting, or what else are you, on a personal level, you're spending your time on?
Mainly fly fishing, because I've found that I love to do things that are competitive, and fly fishing doesn't have to be competitive. I can turn it into that. I think any of us can, but it's become something where I can just relax, enjoy being outdoors, something that requires some skill and technique and getting better, but just to dial it back just a little bit.
Travel to do that? You find places around Northwest Ohio? What favorite spot? What's
lot
on the
of
bucket list of where to go?
A lot of central Pennsylvania, Catskills in New York,
Okay.
Out west, Idaho, Montana. That's a little bit more difficult. At this point, I'd rather drive somewhere if we could, just to be respectful of our time. But yeah, I love getting away in the mountains and fishing for trout.
Got it. Yeah, that's, you mentioned we spend a lot of time with competitive things and finding that one or two things that gives you relief, but also doesn't bring back the competitive side.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you might have found one or two.
Yeah, I think it's important to know yourself of, some people I think need to be competitive. They haven't had that experience. And to be uncomfortable and to struggle and to just how difficult it can be. Yeah. Some people need that. Others have been really competitive. Yeah, go the other way a little bit.
Yeah. Any specific, I don't like using the word motto, but mantra or things that get you through, I think about, I have two young boys, your son's a little older, but anything along the way of a value or a way you instill work ethic or anything like those when it comes to, either your employees that you mentor and train or family?
Yep. There's several, but the main one is leave people better than you found them. It can even be a vendor, a partner, customer, fellow employee, And at the end of the day, take inventory of, did you improve the lives of the people you interacted with? Even as something as simple as going in and getting coffee in the morning, getting the people to smile, saying their name, getting them to say your name, how powerful that is. And that's in a very small way you're leaving them better. Sometimes there's opportunities to leave people way better. And I think if we're getting staff, people around us to pay attention to that and be more inquisitive and to be able to read people's body language and deliver that, it's super powerful.
And the one thing I was just thinking about when you said that, I agree with everything. And I think a part of why we don't is that we're always in a hurry.
Mm-hmm.
We're always, I'm guilty of it just as much as anybody. We're always going to the next thing, not taking the moments to slow down and do that. Because it doesn't, 30 seconds?
Right. And I think we teach finding your pace. My pace is probably a little bit on the slower side. I have friends that are very fast. They can still deliver that same experience for people. It's going to be a little bit quicker, but the same thing, yes, they can race ahead at a speed that's, it's hard for any of us to keep up with. But if you can find your pace and still do that, I think you're going to get just as much done, yet have an impact on people all at the same time. And we don't talk enough about pace, the individual pace of people and what they can do once you know that about yourself.
Yeah, because I think one of my biggest pet peeves is, hey, how's it going? I'm so busy.
Yeah.
We're all busy.
Yeah.
Different venue, different things, and again, just making the time for what's important. I think that's a great takeaway of, making people leave people better than you found them, and it doesn't have to be because you spent 4 hours with them.
Yeah.
It could be because 30 seconds you actually asked a question and called them by their name.
Yeah, and I advise against asking somebody how they're doing, unless
it's hard.
Unless you really want to take the time to know. But if you genuinely care about people, you can't ask that question and say, "Oh, that's great," or "Oh, I'm sorry." Yeah. There has to be other ways that we interact with people, and
so that's a good one because I've been thinking about any things that you've trained. You have a couple go-tos that, hey, because I'm guilty. I don't ask how you're doing. Hey, what have you been up to? What's something you're working on? Try and get more into something specific, not a generality. But any insights that help for you along those lines?
I think it's more good morning, good afternoon. Hey, what's up, Buttercup? You're looking great. And just keeping it very, very positive and light. Yeah. And just developing rapport that way is more meaningful to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And going down that path, any books, podcasts, you talked about mentors from the interaction of, individuals, but anything when inside looking in books along those lines that you recommend anyone or that's on your daily, weekly routine?
Yeah, I think there's been, 3 books. One, I try to read the Bible every morning. Only read to the point that I can kind of absorb and be present. Yeah. But then the other thing would be a book called Everybody Matters by Bob Chapman. He's the CEO of Barry Wehmiller. Okay. Amazing story. That will make you squirm in your chair a little bit as a business owner. And then the other one is Creativity Inc. by Ed Catmull, who was one of the founders of Pixar. And he was a nerd that had to deal with Steve Jobs. And the whole thing worked, and they built an amazing company together. Mm-hmm. But that is a great leadership book that is not labeled as a leadership book. There's some hidden gems in there, and that's a great one.
Okay. Those 2 to the list. My wife will get mad when Amazon delivers those tomorrow. But
I think we all face that. I had one show up yesterday too, and my wife didn't know it. So
now she's got my kids convinced of yelling at me, Dad, why don't you just read all those books? I'm working on it.
So we all have a pile. That's a good.
If you weren't with Sofa Express and you weren't doing the business coaching, what would Chris be doing today?
Probably fly fishing guide at this age. If I go back, probably looking at something related like behavioral economics or something super nerdy, I think if I was younger. But at this point, I think being able to get people outdoors, get them to slow down. I think fly fishing to me is an excellent way to do that. Plus, challenging people to do something that they can struggle with a little bit and be uncomfortable, and at the end of the day have a great experience. I think if we can put people in those opportunities and get paid a little bit to do it and have some fun, that's great.
Yeah, one thing, it's not fly fishing for me because if I go home with another hobby, I might be looking for another place to live, but finding that out of when you go with people, because we get so attached to the phone and you ain't having your phone when you're fly fishing and just that connectivity, purposeful connection with people. I think that's everyone should have that, whether it's fly fishing, whether it's shooting, they should have that outlet.
Yeah, and I think group activities too. We talked about sports earlier. I've always felt that you should do an individual sport and a team sport both. And those are very different takeaways and experiences and benefits to each that are, I think, important in our development.
Yeah. Well, as we wrap up on time here, we talked a lot about, individual business settings, and as we close, anything you would want to share with our audience on, whether it be SOFA, Chris individually, anything you want to leave our audience with today?
I think, take your time and work at the pace in your business and professional life that you're being intentional about what you're building. I think if I've learned a lesson is you try to push too hard and go too fast, and it's outside of your pace and scope of what you can do and handle. And you have to find that. And if you need to find someone to help you do that professionally or through your friend group, I encourage you to ask your friends those difficult questions of, hey, what do I need to do to be a better boss, to be a better dad? Gotta ask questions.
I don't know if you plan that or not, but ending on a be better theme couldn't make me happier. So
it's perfect.
I don't know if that was on perfect or planned, but it worked out
great.
Nope,
I love it.
Thank you for your time, and thanks for joining in on this episode of Beyond the Policy, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for hanging out with me on Beyond the Policy. If you got something out of today's conversation, pass it along to a friend, client, or colleague who might enjoy it too. You can always connect with me through the show notes or on LinkedIn. And remember, the best coverage always starts with the right conversations. Until next time, be better.